This woman, her name is Sarah, and she watched her entire world crumble in a single evening. 2 years of love. A wedding planned for February. A baby growing inside her, all destroyed by 30 seconds of footage from a life she'd left behind 3 years ago. Someone sent her fiancé a video. A video she didn't even remember existed. And just like that, the man who promised her forever couldn't even look her in the eye. What happens when your past refuses to stay buried? This is her story. I'm Emma, your storyteller here at Mrs. Emma, and today I'm sharing a story that will make you question everything about honesty, timing, and whether some secrets should ever come to light. Sarah was 25 years old when everything fell apart. For the first time in her life, things made sense. She had a man who loved her. A real man. James was 29, worked in software engineering, and made the kind of money that meant Sarah could finally breathe. They'd been together for 2 years. The ring was on her finger. The dress was hanging in her closet. Their baby was due in July. She thought she'd finally escaped the chaos of her early 20s, escaped the version of herself she'd rather forget, escaped the girl who made choices out of desperation and called it freedom. But the past doesn't ask permission before it comes knocking. Let me take you back to where this really begins. When Sarah was 22, she was drowning. College tuition bills piled up like accusations. Her parents couldn't help. Student loans weren't enough. She was working 2 jobs and still coming up short. Student loans weren't enough. She was working 2 jobs and still coming up short. That's when she made a choice. A choice that seemed simple at the time. A choice that would haunt her 3 years later. She started making money in ways she's not proud of. Ways that paid well. Ways that came with cameras and strangers, and a version of herself she locked away the moment she graduated. She told herself it was temporary. She told herself it was survival. She told herself everyone does what they have to do. She told herself everyone does what they have to do. And then she met James. With James, everything changed. Sarah became the woman she'd always wanted to be. Loyal, committed, present. They even took a break once, early in their relationship. 1 month apart to figure out if they were really serious. 1 month apart to figure out if they were really serious. And during that month, when other men approached her, when opportunities presented themselves, Sarah said no. Every single time. Because she wanted something real. Something clean. Something that wasn't tangled up in transactions and regret. Because she wanted something real. Something that wasn't tangled up in transactions and regret. She threw herself into being the perfect girlfriend. She managed their social media like it was a job. Every date was documented. Every anniversary celebrated. Every moment curated to show the world they'd made it. Every moment curated to show the world they'd made it. They were the couple everyone wanted to be. James never asked about her past. Not really. They both knew they weren't each other's first. So what was the point of excavating old relationships? The past stays in the past. That's what Sarah believed. That's what Sarah believed. If James wanted to know something specific, he would ask. He never did, so she never told. She ignored messages from people who knew the old Sarah. She didn't respond when names from her college days popped up on social media. That girl was gone. This new Sarah, the one planning a wedding and growing a baby, this was who she really was. This was who she'd always meant to be. This new Sarah, the one planning a wedding and growing a baby, this was who she really was. This was who she'd always meant to be. The security James provided wasn't just financial, though she'd be lying if she said that didn't matter. After years of struggle, having someone stable felt like finally being able to rest. No more panic attacks over rent. No more choosing between groceries and electricity. No more desperate choices that left pieces of herself scattered in places she couldn't take back. Their life together had a rhythm. Comfortable, predictable, safe. James came home from work. They'd cook dinner together, watch television, talk about their days. Weekends were for errands and friends and wedding planning. It was exactly the kind of boring, beautiful life Sarah had dreamed about during those desperate college nights. She was careful. So careful. No flirting with other men. No questionable situations. Complete transparency about where she was and who she was with. Complete transparency about where she was and who she was with. She thought that's what commitment looked like. She thought she was doing everything right. The wedding planning consumed her in the best way. Venue booked, invitation sent, cake tasting scheduled. She was 8 weeks pregnant, barely showing. Everything was falling into perfect place. Then James started acting strange. It was small things at first. Quieter than usual, always on his phone, distracted when she talked. Sarah convinced herself it was normal. Things that would pass. He started asking questions about her college years. What was she like back then? Who were her friends? What did she do for fun? Sarah thought he was just curious, wanting to know more about the woman he was going to marry. So she answered. She kept it light. Classes and friends and parties. The normal college experience everyone talks about. She had no idea someone had already shown him the truth. The night it happened, James came home holding his phone like it was radioactive. His face was a mixture of shock and disgust and betrayal. Disgust and betrayal. He sat down across from her at their kitchen table and just stared. The silence stretched until Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. Finally, he spoke. Someone sent him something. An anonymous Instagram account. A message that said, "Don't marry the whore." And a video. The video was from when Sarah was 22, from her college phase. From the time she spent 3 years trying to forget. She was with 3 men. The footage was explicit. But here's the thing that made it worse. All their faces were blurred. You couldn't identify anyone unless you knew exactly what to look for. James only knew it was Sarah because of a tiny tattoo on her hip. A tattoo only someone intimate would recognize. Sarah's first instinct was defense. How could he even be sure it was her? The faces were blurred. It was ancient history. It had nothing to do with who they were now. She was angry, furious that someone would try to destroy their happiness with irrelevant footage from a different lifetime. But James wasn't listening. He started saying things that didn't make sense. That she was only with him for his money, for his stability. Where was this coming from? Sarah loved him. Yes, the security was nice, but that wasn't why she said yes to forever. Then came the question she'd been dreading. The question she hoped would never come up. How many people had she been with? Sarah could have lied, but she's always believed in honesty. Around 80, she told him. Around 80 men over the years. Around 80, she told him. Around 80 men over the years. The look on James's face broke something inside her, like she'd physically struck him. He sat there processing, doing math in his head, calculating timelines and frequencies and comparisons. She tried to explain. Some were short relationships. Some were spread out over months of being single. It wasn't as bad as it sounded. But the more she justified, the worse his expression became. He wanted details about the video. When was it made? How many copies existed? Was it online? Sarah didn't know. It was years ago. She'd moved on. She wasn't keeping track of old content or staying in contact with people from that time. That's when James spiraled. He started imagining scenarios. His coworkers seeing it, their social circle finding out, their future children discovering it someday. He was creating catastrophes that probably would never happen, working himself into a panic over possibilities instead of reality. Sarah kept trying to bring him back to what mattered. This happened before she knew him, before they existed. She'd never cheated, never given him reason to doubt her. She was carrying his child, planning their wedding, building their future. Wasn't that more important than ancient history? But James couldn't get past it. He said he felt like he didn't know who she really was, like she'd been pretending the entire time. That hurt worse than anything, because Sarah hadn't been pretending. She'd grown. She wasn't that desperate college girl anymore. He needed space. Just like that. After 2 years and a baby on the way, he needed space to think about whether he could still marry her, because of something that happened before they'd even met. Sarah was devastated. This was supposed to be their happy time. Instead, she was alone in their house, wondering if everything she'd built was about to vanish, because someone decided her past was more important than her present. What made it unbearable was that Sarah genuinely didn't understand why this mattered so much. They'd both had previous partners. The only difference was quantity and documentation. If the situation were reversed, Sarah would have handled it differently. But apparently, having a past meant you weren't marriage material. Apparently, growth and change didn't matter if someone had evidence of who you used to be. She spent that night crying, watching her perfect life disintegrate in real time. A week later, James returned with an ultimatum. Either they postponed the wedding indefinitely while he processed everything, or they were done. No middle ground, no compromise, no working through it together like couples do. Sarah was 8 weeks pregnant. The wedding was 4 months away. Everything hung by a thread because of 30 seconds of footage from 3 years ago. She went into damage control mode. She'd track down whoever sent the video. They'd go to couples therapy. She'd delete all her social media if that would help. Nothing worked. James was fixated on feeling deceived, even though Sarah had never actually lied. He just never asked the right questions, and somehow that was her fault. The worst part was reaching out to friends and having some of them side with James. They said she should have been more upfront about her extensive past, like she owed every potential boyfriend a detailed sexual resume before getting serious. Since when was that required? Sarah tried explaining that when you're building something new, you focus on the future, not cataloging every previous encounter. She wasn't hiding anything maliciously. It just wasn't relevant. But everyone kept acting like she'd committed a crime by having an active single life before settling down. Meanwhile, men get praised for experience. The double standard was infuriating. She started using the pregnancy as leverage, reminding James they were about to be parents. The stress wasn't good for the baby. Their child needed stable parents who worked through problems together. She even offered to move to a different city if he was worried about people finding out. She was willing to abandon everything to save their relationship. But James wasn't willing to get over something that happened before they met. The more desperate Sarah became, the more distant James grew. Like he'd already decided and was just waiting for her to accept it. She could feel him slipping away, and she was powerless to stop it. She panicked about losing everything, not just James, but the whole life they'd built, the house, the financial security, the social status, the perfect future she'd planned. She'd gotten so comfortable that she couldn't imagine going back to struggling and uncertainty. Maybe, if she's honest, she was fighting more for the lifestyle than for the man himself. But at the time, it all felt the same. The final straw came when Sarah discovered James had been discussing their situation with his family and friends, behind her back. She was humiliated that their private business had become gossip for people who didn't know the whole story. When she confronted him about violating her privacy, he said he needed advice and support. From who? People who would automatically take his side and tell him he deserved someone pure? That's when Sarah really exploded. She accused him of turning everyone against her, of making her look like a villain when all she'd done was live her life as a single woman before committing to him completely. The conversation turned brutal. James said he felt like he didn't know who she really was. Sarah fired back that if he couldn't accept her past, then maybe he never really loved her at all. Real love means accepting someone completely, including their history. She laid out everything she'd brought to the relationship: complete faithfulness, emotional support, carrying his child, being the perfect girlfriend in every way that actually mattered. Why did none of that count compared to something from years before they met? James said it wasn't just about the past. It was about feeling deceived, wondering what else she hadn't told him. That made Sarah angrier. She never deceived anyone. He just never asked specific questions. Was she supposed to volunteer information that might ruin her chances at happiness? She told him he was insecure, that he couldn't handle being with a woman who had more experience than him. Most men would appreciate being with someone who knew what they were doing, but apparently he needed some innocent girl who would make him feel like her first and only everything. That's when James finally snapped. He was done. He couldn't marry someone he didn't trust. Sarah realized she was actually losing him. She started bargaining. She'd sign a prenup, get a DNA test for the baby, anything to prove her commitment. But it was too late. James had already mentally checked out. He was just going through the motions until he could figure out how to leave without looking like the bad guy who abandoned his pregnant fiancé. The last thing Sarah said to him was that he was throwing away something real for something that didn't matter. That he'd regret it when he realized how good he had it with her. She meant it. 6 months later, Sarah's life looks nothing like she imagined. She's in a tiny apartment that costs half her paycheck. Her ex-fiancé is thriving without her. He pays child support because the law requires it, but that's all. No extra help, no emotional support, nothing beyond the bare minimum. Their daughter is beautiful and perfect, but raising her alone is nothing like Sarah imagined motherhood would be. She thought she'd be in their nice house with a husband who helped with night feedings and diaper changes. Instead, she's doing everything herself while working a job she hates just to survive. The dating scene as a single mom is brutal. The kind of men she used to attract aren't interested in someone with a baby. The few dates she's been on either ended when they found out about her past, or were clearly just looking for an easy hookup because they assumed she'd be desperate. Meanwhile, James is thriving. She sees him sometimes around town. He looks better than ever. He got promoted, started working out, has this confidence he never had when they were together. Like leaving her was the best thing that ever happened to him. The worst part is his new girlfriend. She's quiet, conservative, works at a medical office. Everything about her screams relationship material in a way Sarah apparently never did. She's probably never been with more than 2 or 3 men. Definitely never made any videos. Definitely never needed money for college the way Sarah did. Sarah tries to tell herself that she's boring, that James will eventually realize what he's missing. But deep down, she knows that's not true. His new girlfriend gives him something Sarah never could: peace of mind. He doesn't have to worry about her past catching up to them. No anonymous messages, no videos, no surprises. Sarah's friends have gradually distanced themselves, tired of hearing her complain about how unfair everything turned out. They moved on while she's stuck replaying the same arguments, wondering what she could have done differently. She's working a dead-end job that barely covers expenses, living in a place half the size of the house they were supposed to share, struggling with childcare costs that eat most of her paycheck. This isn't the life she planned. The final blow came last month. Their engagement announcement on social media. The new girlfriend wearing a ring twice the size of Sarah's. They look genuinely happy. Even in Sarah's best photos with James, there was always something forced about their smiles. In these new pictures, they look relaxed, natural, like two people who actually enjoy each other's company and aren't worried about what anyone thinks. Sarah realized while looking at those photos that while she was busy trying to build a life based on what she could get from James, the house, the security, the status, his new girlfriend built something real with him. Something based on who they actually are together, not what they could provide for each other. But even now, sitting alone with her daughter while James probably plans his new wedding, Sarah can't fully admit that her choices and attitude contributed to losing everything. It's easier to blame him for being too insecure to handle a woman with a real past than to face the possibility that maybe she approached their entire relationship wrong from the beginning. Sarah still doesn't think she did anything terrible. Her past is her past, and she shouldn't have to apologize for living her life before she met James. But she can't deny that everything she wanted has slipped away. And she's the one dealing with the consequences while he gets his happy ending with someone else. Sometimes she wonders if she would have handled things differently if she'd known what was at stake. But then she remembers that she shouldn't have to change who she is or hide her history to keep a man. If he couldn't accept all of her, then maybe they were never meant to be together anyway. That's what she tells herself on bad days. When she's changing diapers alone at 3 a.m, wondering how everything went so wrong so fast. But honestly, watching him succeed without her makes it hard to believe her own rationalizations. This is Emma, and this story stays with me. It makes me think about honesty, timing, and whether some versions of ourselves should stay in the past or be shared with the people we love. What do you think? Should Sarah have told James about her past before things got serious? Or was this information that didn't matter until someone made it matter? If this story moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Mrs. Emma so you never miss stories like this one. Stories about real people, real choices, and real consequences. I'll see you in the next one.